Greetings, welcome to Facts About Everything. I'm your host, James Egan. This month I'll be focused on Africa and African Americans, so I decided to talk about one of the most influential African Americans to ever live, Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was known by many things. A visionary, a champion of the civil rights movement, a Grammy winner, and... Wait, what? He didn't win a Grammy, did he? Oh my god, he did. Martin Luther King is a Grammy winner. He won a Grammy for Best Spoken Word Recording in 1971 for Why I Opposed the War in Vietnam. And that is the first fact about Martin Luther King. Let's dive in. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in 1929. His birth name was Michael. Martin Luther King was an American Baptist minister who became the leader in the civil rights movement from 1954 to 1968 to promote rights to African Americans through non-violent means. He was born the same year as Anne Frank. King was best friends with a white boy when he was 3 years old. It's very difficult to say white boy without sounding like a derogatory slur. He played with a white boy every day until King had to attend a school for black children. When King was 6, the boy told him that his father said he wasn't allowed to play with him anymore. This was the first time that King felt different. In his own words, "For the first time, I was made aware of the existence of a race problem. From that moment on, I was determined to hate every white person." Although his father was a preacher, Martin Luther King Sr. regularly battered Martin and his brother Alfred with a belt. His neighbors said he heard King Sr. threaten to beat his children to death. King believed that bullies picked on others because they wanted a reaction. King never made a sound when his father pounded him. King Sr. even said he'd stand there and the tears would run down and he'd never cry. His great-grandfather was Irish. When he was 10, King had to dress as a slave for a performance at the premiere of the 1939 film Gone with the Wind. King didn't see the film at the time, as African Americans weren't allowed in the cinema. Even the film's Oscar-winning actress, Hattie McDaniel, couldn't attend because she was black. His father defied every Jim Crow law. Jim Crow laws were state rules that enforced racial segregation in certain states. King Sr. didn't even take the bus because he was expected to sit in the back. He talked back to any white person who called him boy, even if they were a police officer. King started to doubt the divinity of Christ as a teenager. The only reason King became a reverend is because he thought it was the perfect platform to speak about social issues. When he was 13, he gave a public speech called The Negro and the Constitution. Afterward, he took a 90-mile bus trip home. When several white people boarded, he was asked to give his seat up. He had to stand for the rest of the journey. King said that was the angriest he had been in his entire life. One day, King snuck out of the house to watch a parade when he was supposed to be looking after his grandmother. When he returned home, he learned she had a heart attack. King believed she could have survived if he had been there. Out of shame, he jumped out of the top story of the house. Although he survived, he suffered agonizing pain for several months. Despite the fact Martin Luther King is one of the greatest orators of all time, he received a C+ in public speaking at school. He skipped 2 grades at school. King worked at a plantation in Connecticut when he was 15. Although he had to work very hard, King was happy because there was no segregation laws. In his hometown, King wasn't allowed out during the weekends because he was black. King said his experience in Connecticut was the first time he felt equality in his life. It was the first time his hatred for white people subsided because he saw the white workers were mistreated just as badly as the Negroes. This inspired him to fight for equality for all races. He fell in love with a cafeteria worker at his school and wanted to marry her. There was just one problem. She was white. His family begged him to call it off. Although King refused to be bullied by his father, he couldn't put up with his mother's pain. King broke up with the girl shortly after. One of his friends said he never recovered. I do try to be fair in my videos, and although Martin Luther King is one of the most inspirational people to ever live, I'm not going to just focus on his good stuff, because he did some bad stuff too. Like, he plagiarized a large portion of his doctorate dissertation from another student. Hey, cheating. Also, although King was known as a man of peace, he had many guns in his home which were purchased illegally. Because King was a charismatic preacher, you expect him to be a part of the choir. Although King was a member, he despised the singing as he believed cheering and clapping during prayer fed the negative stereotype against the black community. He absolutely loved Star Trek. Nichelle Nichols, who played Uhura in Star Trek, was considering leaving the show. It was Martin Luther King that encouraged her to stay, saying it was important for African Americans to see a black woman on a TV show playing an important, strong character. His home was bombed in 1956. The FBI wrote an anonymous letter to King stating he was a Satan worshipper, a homosexual, and should kill himself within 34 days or his affair would become public knowledge. Also, the FBI nicknamed him as the most dangerous Negro. King made his I Had a Dream speech at the Lincoln Memorial in 1963. Most of the speech was improvised. He was jailed 29 times in his life. He underwent surgery in 1958 to remove a steel letter opener from his chest. He gave 2,500 speeches throughout his life. King won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. At the time, he was the youngest recipient of the award. In 1967, King wrote to Japan saying he hopes to visit the country to bring peace between the East and the West with goodwill and brotherhood. After he died, the city of Hiroshima celebrated Martin Luther King Day by teaching the importance of social change through non-violent means. During a speech in Memphis, King told the audience not to buy Coke since black workers at Coca-Cola factories were being paid far less than white workers even though they worked more hours. He was shot dead by James Earl Ray on April 4th, 1969. The bullet smashed King's jaw before traveling down his spine. Ray was sentenced to 99 years in prison. Martin Luther King said he would never see 40. He died when he was 39. Although JFK gets the whole conspiracy murder thing, Martin Luther King has one as well. Some people believe King was actually killed by the US government, the mafia, or the Illuminati. Although that sounds a bit ridiculous, Ray's family and Martin Luther King's family believes this as well. The Martin Luther King Memorial was publicly revealed in Washington, D.C. in 2011 after 20 years of fundraising and construction. Contrary to popular belief, Martin Luther King wasn't popular when he died. Before his assassination, many people saw King as anti-American after he emphasized that he was against the Vietnam War. Documentary filmmaker Michael Moore said he remembers when he was young hearing the announcement on the radio that Martin Luther King died, and everyone in his proximity cheered and applauded. It makes you really think, I wonder what would have happened if Martin Luther King didn't die. I wonder what else he would have accomplished with his life. The sad thing is, he was never going to live very long. His autopsy showed that he had the heart of a 60-year-old man due to the stress he was constantly under from racists threatening to kill his wife and his children. Over 900 streets in the US are named after King. He was Time Magazine's Man of the Year in 1963. And the final fact is, on the same day Martin Luther King died, he had a pillow fight with his friends Andrew Young and Ralph Abernathy. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe. If there's any other African Americans you want me to talk about, Frederick Douglass, Rosa Parks, Muhammad Ali, let me know and I'll upload it as soon as possible. To learn more facts, check out my books. They're available on Amazon, on paperback, and Kindle. Thanks for watching. See you again.